Hello, everyone. Welcome to another live guest interview in Mindful Journey. I'm so delighted to have you here with us today. And if this is your first time, welcome. If you've been with us for a number of these conversations, welcome back. As always, you can put any questions you may have into the chat function, and then we'll work to get to them on the back end of the conversation. Our guest today is such a um, positive by nature guy, as you're going to find. Just his smile and enthusiasm is infectious. I'm going to briefly highlight some components of his bio. Many of you maybe have seen it in advance already, but Jacob Brown, who joins us today, is previously an NFL player turned serial entrepreneur and now renowned international keynote speaker. He founded a fail forward movement, which I highly recommend you connect with him on LinkedIn specifically, but on all social platforms. If you're looking for just a nudge of inspiration and a way to reframe your failure into something that can be for your betterment and not your detriment, so to speak. He has a lot of experience with organizations, having spoken on stages from Meta to LinkedIn to the Dallas Cowboys and the University of Notre Dame, but also works in the trenches, to my knowledge and understanding, in doing some coaching, some executive coaching, and is an author as well. I see the book there in his corner, a nice orange cover, which is part of his brand color. But with all that being said, I'm not going to dive too much more into his bio. I just want to thank you personally, Jacob, for being with us, and very much looking forward to your insights and diving into your story. So appreciate your time today.
Absolutely, Adam. And thank you for that amazing intro. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the conversation today as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Would you mind sharing with the listeners what it is that got you into this work, this keynote speaking, this desire to impact lives? What's your journey been like leading up till now?
You know what's funny? It's funny that oftentimes I believe our purpose and our passion is something that we run away from before we start running toward it. And I personally never wanted to be a motivational speaker, did not want to be a keynote speaker. Growing up, my dad would listen to Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, and Les Brown. And I'd be in the car and I'm just like, oh my gosh, why is he listening to this again? Like, what is this nonsense? But it wasn't until I got a little older that I understood how the mind works and how positive affirmation, positive content information changes our lives, to be quite honest. And around 2014, I was posting, I started the Fail Forward movement, like you said. I was posting on LinkedIn every single day, short stories, short tips, leadership tips, life tips, and I would always hashtag Fail Forward. And then I started having people reach out to ask me to speak, motivate and encourage my team, motivate and encourage my company, whatever it might be, right? Jump on a call, quick Zoom call, and share some insights. And the more I did that, the more I realized I can impact a large mass group of people with an idea, with an opinion, with something that motivates me all at once. And when I started to get feedback of people coming up to me after events, after keynotes, and they're like, what you said really touched me and changed my life, right? Or I get an email months down the line or a message on LinkedIn, and someone says, hey, I was in the audience when you shared this story. It really impacted my life and changed my perspective around leadership, around being a parent, around just being a good human being. And the more I heard that, the more I realized this might be my calling, this might be my purpose. And I would probably say around 2019 is when I actually got serious about being a speaker. I've always been mentoring, I've always been coaching. I was a creative director for 16 years. I was always leading teams and overseeing people in their work, in their lives. But it wasn't until around 2019 that I actually got serious about it and kind of created what you know today as Jacob Brown Fail Forward.
I love that. It's so funny you started by saying that your dad was big into listening to speakers, and you were like, "Oh my
Uh,
gosh, what are we listening to?"
yeah,
What great perspective though, Jacob, because I think there can be folks out there who've gone through difficult times. It's just like the fixed mindset. I think it was Dweck who had growth mindset versus fixed mindset, right?
yeah,
After you go through so many difficulties, you might be resistant to this positivity, if you will,
yeah.
and folks inherently have skepticism. So, how would you? define your work today to help break through some of those skeptic voices that you kind of had on the front
Yeah.
end before you entered into this career? Is there anything you might say to those individuals listening who are like, yeah, but you don't, I'm going through this divorce and man, it hurts. You don't know. I don't want to hear this feel good. How am I going to get through it?
Yeah, yeah. For anyone that might have that mindset right now, right, where it's a scarcity mindset, it might be a victim mindset, and you might not want to admit that that's what it is, or maybe you just feel like the world is against you and you've got bad luck. Let me give you a little perspective. Um, 13 years ago, I was living in and out of hotels. I was homeless for about 3.5 months. I'd gone through a terrible divorce, terrible custody battle, and my life was in shambles. Not only that, I was struggling with addiction. I was an alcoholic, and that did not help me in any way. I had two cars repoed. I was evicted out of my first rental home after my divorce, and life was hard. I lost jobs, I lost friends, I lost myself. And there was a period of time where I didn't want to be here anymore. And I remember a voice, and it was my aunt's voice. And she asked me in 2006, right before I went to the NFL, she asked me, what happens if football didn't work out? And I said, I don't know. I just fall back on what I was getting my degree in, graphic or web design. And she said, Jake, if you're ever going to fail or if you're ever going to fall, always fall or fail forward. And for so long, I believed that, I'm a middle child. I'm a middle child of seven. So I have that middle child syndrome and complex where I feel like no one hears me, no one sees me, no one cares about me. And I fought that for a long period of time because I fully believed that a lot of the world was against me and things just didn't go my way. But if you're listening to this and you're struggling with the mindset of positivity, I want you to think about this. I speak a lot about manifestation. Okay. Manifestation is, in my opinion, thinking something, believing it can be true, taking action to make it true, and ultimately expecting it to happen. And that goes both ways. It does not matter in your life. You are manifesting the life that you have and the life that you want. And you can say that you don't want these bad things to happen in your life, or you don't want this job to be terrible, or you don't want this relationship to be terrible, but you're manifesting the good and the bad in your life. Whatever you are constantly thinking about, whatever is going on in your mind all the time, you are consciously and subconsciously marching towards that result, period. And I was constantly thinking about not great things, drinking, abandoning my responsibilities. And that's what would happen in my life. I was marching towards those things during that period of my life. And I know that everything that happened in my life was because of what I was or was not doing. And that is just the reality. And I had to come to a point where I had to take extreme accountability of where I was in my life, where I was not in my life, and I had to shift my mindset. In the moment I began to reshape and shift my mindset towards the life I really wanted and how I wanted to be as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a business owner, that's when I started to march towards those things. And that's when life began, God began, the universe, whatever you want to call it, began to give me the things that I was hopeful for and that I was marching towards. And I've manifested the life that I've wanted because I changed my mindset.
Mm, powerful stuff, brother. Thank you for sharing that, Jacob, and giving us an inside look into the challenges that you had. I've often believed that when people go through hardship of their own, they have um, a deepened ability to be able to connect with others, right? Because you've been at the perceivable rock bottom. So
Absolutely.
not much that can be shared that you may not be able to relate to. So thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable with us and definitely powerful perspective in those moments when you were jumping hotel to hotel and going through that divorce and being reliant on alcohol. what do you recall being like one or two things that you immediately relied on to help you make that shift? Was it a book? Was it meditation? I love how you defined manifestation. I think that's so powerful. There are like five steps in there. And would you mind? Because what I'm trying to do for the listeners is if there's somebody here today who's going through something, which everyone's got something in my opinion, they like, is there a strategy you'd recommend we rely on instantaneously to help make that shift?
Yeah, so there are a couple things that I did during that moment, and I still do them today. One of the things that you have to get is a mentor or an accountability partner. And this has got to be someone that is close to you. It's got to be someone that knows you. It's got to be someone that you know can reach out to you when they feel or see that things are off with you. And I had a couple of really good friends that are accountability partners. They're former athletes I used to play with in college that even still today they will reach out to me whenever they feel something's off with me. They might see a post on LinkedIn or social media. They're like, hey, maybe you need to check in with Jake and see if he's still, on the right track, on the right path, if he's still doing the things that he should do. So I would find number one, you can call it a coach, you can call it a mentor, you can call it an accountability partner, just someone that knows you and someone that can help keep you on the right track. And number two, the other thing that I relied on, obviously, I'm a spiritual man, is the Bible. And I've got a tattoo on my right shoulder, and it's Romans 8:28. It says all things. And the scripture says that we know that God causes all things to come together for the good to those that love him and those that are called according to his purpose. This is where, for me, fail forward mentality comes from. Everything happens in our life for a reason. Everyone knows that, that quote, that saying, everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. But do we really believe that? Right? Do you
Mhm.
really truly believe that at your core? Do you believe that the devastation that you just had? I just got a guy that just texted me 30 minutes ago and said, hey, Jake, I need you to keep me in your prayers. Think about me because I just lost my job. I was terminated. I feel devastated. I feel like that, I feel betrayed is a word that he said. He said, I've given a lot of my life to this and I feel betrayed. And it was hard for me to say, hey, I'm sorry this happened because at the end of the day, I know that this happening for him is something that's going to propel him to even better things. And it's really hard in that moment to think like that. But do we really believe that? Right. And one of the things Eric Thomas, he talked about every failure that you have, it's like you're in a slingshot and you keep getting pulled back and pulled back and pulled back. And people keep saying, I feel like I'm so behind. I feel like I'm keep getting pulled back. Every time, I take a step forward, I take two steps back. But one of the things that I realized in this moment is that, yes, I felt I was in rock bottom. Yes, I felt like everything was going wrong in my life. But I also knew if I just let go, then that I will be able to fly. Just like inside that slingshot, when you let go of the slingshot, if you can keep pulling back, but as soon as you let go, that's when things start to soar. And I'm telling
Yeah.
you, that's exactly when life started to change for me, is when I realized truly that everything does happen for a reason. This is a learning moment. This is something I'm going to be able to use for my good in the future. The only reason why I'm telling this story is because it's something that I realized that I went through, and now I'm using it for my good.
Amazing stuff. Amazing. I want to go to I like that slingshot analogy, by the way. And Eric Thomas, what a powerful speaker. I assume that's who you're alluding to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great analogy. And I've actually not heard that from him. So thanks for sharing. Um, I'd like to go back to your NFL days because I think particularly today, and you and I had such a rich conversation when we just connected about a week and a half or so ago. I can't wait till the day we have a chance to meet in person. It's going to come. So,
Absolutely.
um, but one of the things that you talked about, and we were kind of talking about, is just the social media and how our identity can be tied to titles and to this comparison game. And with that, it's not lost on me, and even the listeners, I presume, even if we have folks who aren't, sports fans, NFL is a big deal, right? It's a very small percentage of people who actually get there to get a taste of it. And I assume that was a huge part of your identity. Now, I'm
Yeah,
being presumptuous in this ask, but I'm guessing that Jacob Brown was always the football player, right?
yeah.
I'm Jake Brown, the football player, the college athlete. So when your aunt had told you that, hey, fail forward, fall forward, if not backward during those moments, how do you, and I know this is perhaps so far in the back in the past, but what I'm trying to ultimately help our listeners understand is that you aren't what you do, right?
Yeah,
And there's an old quote that says, if you are what you do, then when you don't, you aren't. And that when I first heard that, it was profound. But you've epitomized that now, Jacob, from my vantage point, because you're thriving in the marketplace, helping people. But I'm sure there was a time where your ego was hurt, and you're like, man, I don't got football no more. So
yeah.
for someone thinking like my identity is attached to my job, what's your recommendation to them to ensure that they don't become, in this egoic pursuit?
Yeah. So one of the things that I share this in my keynotes, and Simon Sinek shared this story about a former Undersecretary of Defense, and he's given a speech in front of about 1,000 people at a conference, and he reaches down right before he gives his final remarks and grabs a styrofoam cup full of coffee, and he goes off script. He says, last year I was the Undersecretary of Defense. I wasn't the former Undersecretary. He said last year they flew me here business class. Somebody picked me up at the airport, took me to my hotel. I was already checked in. The morning of the conference, they brought me to the conference in the green room. Somebody handed me a nice ceramic mug full of coffee. He says, but this year I'm the former undersecretary. I had to fly your coach. I made my way to my hotel, checked myself in this morning. I took a taxi here to this conference. And when I made my way to the back green room, I asked if there was any coffee. Somebody pointed to the corner, said, make it yourself. To which I poured coffee into this styrofoam cup. He said, in that moment, he realized something. He said, all of the treatment, the gifts, accolades he was given when he was the Undersecretary of Defense weren't meant for him. They were meant for the position that he held. And he said he in that moment he deserved, he realized I deserve a styrofoam cup, right? And I joke about this because there was a period of time where I was a football player. I was a college football athlete. I was a team captain. I made it to the NFL. All my friends from high school were cheering me on. I'm signing autographs, and then it was gone. And there were no more autographs. There were no more people going crazy when I attended high school games that I went to. No one cared anymore. And that's when I realized that I tied all of my worth and my value into a title and a position and not who I was.
Mm.
And I firmly believe that if we, here's one of the reasons why my title on LinkedIn is just human being. It just says human being because I don't care what I do or what my title is, how much money I make. If I'm not a good human being, none of this matters.
Yeah.
And when I am gone, right, and people are speaking about me at my funeral, they're not going to say, "Oh, he was the best chief marketing officer," or "He was a great graphic designer," or "He was an amazing co-founder." No, they're going to talk about Jacob Brown, the human being, and what I did for them, how I made them feel, right? And that's what my focus is. That's what my resume is. I want my resume to be read not about what I've done, but how I made people feel during my eulogy. And it was a hard transition because I did tie everything to my position. I did tie everything to my title. I thought I was just a football player for so long. But I realized that my purpose here on earth isn't just to play football, it's to impact lives. Now, I could do that through the platform of football. I can do that through the platform of speaking. I could do that through the platform of coaching. But ultimately, my goal in life is to impact and empower people to be the best person and human being that they can be at their core.
Yes, yes. That needs an amen on the back of it, man. That you got some of that ET in you. He goes ET, the hip hop preacher. Um, yeah, that's great stuff. I love that story. I also, familiar with Simon's work and hadn't heard that either. So you're teaching me personally lots of new lessons today. But
Love it.
it's a great reminder for all of us, right? Like our titles, they're like positional authority or, and this ties back to leadership or true servant leaders,
Yes.
those who have a title where people inherently follow because they're CEO, managing director, or whatever, doesn't make you a leader. You're a
Right.
leader, based upon how it is that you show up in the world and how you care for others.
Yeah.
And I really like that you connected that dots, because I think that's applicable for people on all ends of the spectrum, from a standpoint of, if they're in retirement, if they're in pursuit of, if they're a college student hearing this. And so that's important. Now, for people who are maybe like your friend who texted you earlier today, going through this transition, now he might be identifying with the title of laid off or
Yeah.
unemployed. And is there something that you would recommend that he do or that we do to break free of those negative labels? Because you're talking powerful label of NFL, you know, what about the labels of inadequate? How do we kind of get through those so that we're not bound by a title?
Yeah. So it's all about how you reframe whatever you're going through. And, I remember a period of time where I was laid off, right? I got laid off from Amazon back in early 2022. And that was the last job that I ever held. So I was growing my speaking, I was growing my coaching while also holding down high positions within corporate America. And Amazon was the last job that I held. And when I got laid off, I remember I shared with the world, because I'm very transparent on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I share with the world, hey, this happened. I'm looking for my next opportunity, da da da. And my younger brother, go figure, reached out to me. And he says, Jake, you haven't been laid off. You've been launched. And when he said you've been launched, I took that as this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for, to no longer have the handcuffs on my hands, arms, feet, and mouth. And now I can actually truly do what God has told and taught me to do. And I have not looked back since. So if you have been laid off, I want you to really think about this. This is an opportunity for you to launch into exactly what you wanted to do, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's starting a business, whether it's going after a different job that maybe you couldn't have while you were holding down the position, whether it's writing a book, whatever it is. I want you to view this as you're being launched. And as long as you take that mindset, that energy, that frequency in your life, people are going to feel it, they're going to see it, they're going to notice it, and they're going to expect you to do great things as long as you are. And one of the things that I always tell people to do, you need to make sure that you are maintaining, cultivating a personal brand on LinkedIn so that people understand who you are, what you believe, and what you provide.
Mhm.
And whether you're holding a job now or whether you're laid off, make sure that you're managing your LinkedIn profile so that people can see and understand who you are and what you're all about. It'll be
Mhm.
a lot easier for you to land your next opportunity, whatever it might be. So
Mhm.
don't think of it as laid off. Think of it as you've been launched.
Mhm. Yes, yes, yes. Just like the slingshot. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Love it. So one of the things that we're striving to do in Mindful Journey, and I told you this on the front end, is just bringing this rawness, this real vulnerable approach, as you already have been super vulnerable with us, but humanizing this shared experience of life because of
Absolutely.
social media today. It's so easy to say, "Oh, I want to, I want to be like such and such because they've got the perfect life,"
Yeah.
and then we inherently think that what we're going through is unique to just us, when in all actuality, we're all so alike.
Absolutely.
And so to help kind of drive that home, one question that's asked of every single guest, and it's based on your level of comfort in answering, of course, is what's the most challenging thing you've gone through in life, and what do you recall having done to get through it? Now, before I pause to let you answer that, obviously you've shared with us some deep stuff already, and it's purely to your level of comfort. But what we're wanting listeners to understand is that they might see Jake Brown today, the guy who's enthusiastic, energetic, successful from societal standards, not knowing all the stuff that led up until now. So, with that, is there something you can point to that you would deem as the toughest thing in your life? And then what did you do to get through that?
Yeah, I would say one of the toughest things for me to overcome in my life was my alcoholic addiction. So back in 2021, it all came to a head, and I found myself in a terrible situation due to alcohol. And it was August 24th, 2021. And on the 25th, I woke up and I knew that I needed to make a change. And from that day, I mean, literally from that day, I reached out to an AA that was local, a group of people that struggle with the same thing that I was struggling with. And here's what happened, Adam. You mentioned that sometimes we feel like we're alone, we're the only ones going through this. But it's so funny that when you actually reach out, you find out that other people are dealing with the exact same thing or worse. When I went to AA, I'm in a room with 30 to 40 people, and I'm seeing doctors, I'm seeing business owners, I'm seeing police officers that all struggle with the same thing that I did. And immediately I realized this isn't about me. This isn't my self-worth. This isn't my integrity. This is something that it is can be prohibited, but it's a disease, right? But at the end of the day, the disease is just dis-ease, is the way that we talked about it in AA and in therapy, that we're all just uneasy. And alcohol was what we uh, went to when we were uneasy to try to fix that and calm ourselves. But the more we realized that other people were dealing with the same thing, and that we weren't alone, the easier it was for us to get through the day, right? In AA, we always say one day at a time. I firmly believe one day at a time isn't just AA, it's everything that we do in life.
Mhm.
One day at a time, one moment at a time, one thought at a time, one paper at a time, one call at a time. You just have to start stacking the days. By the
Yes.
grace of God, I am 4 years, a little over 4 years sober.
That's
August
awesome.
25th is my sobriety birthday. And that was the day
Congratulations.
that, thank you. That was the day that I got a new second chance, third chance, fourth, fifth chance of life. And my goal now is to help other people find their life again on the other side of whatever their addiction might be.
Hmm.
And when I was able to do that, I realized that I wasn't alone, number one. Number two, other people struggle with the same thing, but it wasn't a death sentence. It was just something for us to overcome, just like everyone else is overcoming something. And it actually
Hmm.
gave me a lot more sense of accountability in my life, in every area of my life, once I found this newfound life.
That's awesome, man. Jacob, thank you so much for again your vulnerability and your authentic sharing. It's felt and deeply grateful to you, and so thankful that you not only sought but sustained the help that you were seeking. That's
Yeah.
awesome, and congratulations, 4 years sober,
Thank
brother.
you.
I've had other guests on here, and fortunately, I've not been challenged, with alcohol misuse, but we've had so many guests who have,
Yeah.
and so I'm attuned to it and empathetic to it because just as you said, I think sometimes society will put labels on people who are going through different addictions, not just alcohol, be it drugs or social media or
Yeah.
Netflix, right? These things can be drugs that we become addicted to, and if we don't know the full story, our judgment of them can disallow an opportunity for us to potentially help and support them. And so, one of the guests that comes to mind that I had, and to your point, Clint Hurdle, he's been a Major League Baseball manager, and he and I've developed a great friendship. Just a good man. He's had so much success in professional sports, and he's now sober, I think, 26 years. But
Wow.
um, he was, at one point on 1978, I think it was Sports Illustrated. He was on the cover as like the top baseball prospect ever,
Wow.
and he shared, I'm bringing this together to help tie the dot, connect the dots here. Um, that he became, relying on AA to help. And to this day, he continues to support because it's like that knowingness that a drink is just one outreach away. My
Yeah.
question to you is, how did the community aspect of AA serve instrumental in other areas of your life as well? Did you find that the sponsor you aligned with is a man or woman that you've continued to engage with, and are you a sponsor now to others?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just like with AA, one of the things I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast is always find a mentor, a coach, an accountability partner, right? And that's exactly what a sponsor is. It's someone that is going to reach out to you, that you reach out to just about every day to make sure that you're still on the right track. One of the things that I found that has helped keep me sober is helping other people get sober and stay sober. So I've been a sponsor to many other people over the years. And when they reach out to me, they're like, Jake, I just celebrated 2 years. I just celebrated 30 days, right? I understand how important that is and how life-changing that is, right? I firmly believe that when we find a good gift, when we find something that changes our life, our job and our duty is to share that with someone else, right? Because if we keep it to ourselves, then it's a lot easier to fall back into the same bad habits than if we are sharing it with other people and allowing others to hold us accountable. One of the things that I do, I share every year when I hit my sobriety birthday, right? Or whatever milestone there might be. I share every single year publicly on social media so that other people can celebrate with me. And there are people that are waiting. There are people that are putting my date on their calendar and they know it's coming because they want to celebrate with me. And giving people the opportunity to celebrate with you and you to celebrate with them when they hit their milestones, that is what we're here for.
Mhm.
We're social animals. We need to be able to work together and support one another. And I think there's no greater way to do it than especially in those areas where people might struggle or when people might need the greatest support.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was curious about the community component just because I think that as I reflect on, like a lot of the guests had who've gone through some sort of adversity, one of the themes that have revealed itself, whether it's been cancer or loss of loved
Hmm.
ones, is community. And I love what you just said about we're social animals. So
Yeah,
when we can be connected to others it brings an energy and enthusiasm to us. So that's a good reminder for all of us, Jake. Thank you.
absolutely.
What's a habit, a personal habit that you have, or a ritual or routine that allows you to perform at a high level with this energy that you're bringing us?
So I've always been the vocalist when it came to teams. I've always been like a team captain from the time I even played Little League all the way through college. But one of the things I realize is that people need words. People need to hear words. My mom used to always say, you have to visualize success before it happens. And when I realized that visualization for me helps other people or if it helps myself, I realized that I need to help other people find that spark for them own selves. One of the things that I do before every speaking engagement is I always go through obviously what my keynote is, what the notes are. I always remind myself who the audience is,
Mm.
but I always ask the event planner about 30 minutes before the event. I ask, so I already have my keynote set. I already have everything understood, and I'm looking forward to stepping on stage. But what is something you believe the audience needs to hear right now?
Mm.
And it always kind of throws off the event planner because they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you unprepared for this event?" That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking. I know that things have changed since the time we spoke and we signed this contract, and I know that things are happening real time. So what does this audience need to hear right now? Right. And
Mm.
it could be one word, it could be one thought. And I always get great insights from the event planner or from the chief marketing officer or chief experience officer, whoever they might be. I always get great insight about real time what the audience needs. And then, I step away and I pray about it and I always add it to my talk. And what people need and what people want is they want someone that can resonate and relate to them and their problem,
Hmm.
right? I can get on stage and I can say the same keynote and rehearse the same keynote over and over again, but if it's not relatable to the audience, if it's not relatable and doesn't resonate with what they need now, it's not going to land. So
Yes.
one of the rituals I always do is I always ask the event planner. I've got a keynote in Columbus, Ohio this Saturday, and if they're watching right now, please expect that I'm going to be asking. But I always ask, like, what does this audience need to hear today, right? And I always weave that into my keynote, and it always lands. It always works.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, it shows from a business perspective, right? Like a preparedness,
Yeah,
but then also a desire to add extraordinary value. Like I'm working until the last moment,
yeah,
right before I go on stage. I'm here and locked in, and that's it's a powerful point that I hope our listeners will take home, even if they're not in a keynote speaking capacity.
yeah,
Um, that we have an obligation as human beings, to go back to your LinkedIn title, to to try to relate to those who are in front of us, those
yes,
who are on the other side of us. So Jake, thanks for sharing that. For someone listening today who might have a message, a desire to do exactly what you're doing, maybe they've gone through heartache, they've gone through pain, they've gone through something that they want to use that pain for good and betterment in the world. What might your recommendation be to that individual for how they can start using their voice for good, even if they're not being a keynote speaker? How can
yeah,
people start adding good into the world, to make this place a happier place?
yeah, yeah. So I always tell people there's a three-part framework to this. People come to me all the time. They're like, Jake, I want to write a book. Jake, I want to be a keynote speaker, right? And I always ask them these three questions. I really do. Number one, what is the story you want to tell? Number two, who do you want to hear this story? And number three, what is the result you want them to have once they hear it?
Mm,
And if you
powerful.
if you can write down this framework, and I do mean write it down, like do not type it out, write it down. Okay. When you write this down, you will start to see that maybe you need to alter who the audience might be, or maybe you need to alter the way you tell the story, or maybe you need to alter the way that you want the result to be. Because what happens, and neurologically, when we write these things down, we're telling our brain, hey, this is important. Number two, I want you to remember it. And number three, here is the result that I'm trying to manifest out of this, right? And subconsciously or consciously, you will start to march towards that result. And it'll also help you understand what platform to share this on. This could be a platform that you share with your team in a team meeting, right? This could be a platform that you share within poetry at a open mic night. This could be a platform that you share in a song that you might write. It could be
Hmm.
something that you share in a speaking engagement. It could be something you share in a coaching call, or it could be something that you share in form of a business. Sometimes somebody might have a problem, they might have a story that they want to teach someone, they have an audience that they want to reach, and they have a result that they're trying to get out of it, right? That's a product, that is a story, it's a training, whatever it might be. So once you start to write this down, you'll understand what the platform is, you'll understand where you're going to share this and the impact that you're trying to create.
Hmm. And for those listening who have a fear of either being on camera or being on stage, I think I've told you I've done plenty of speaking throughout my career, and fortunately, I don't have that fear that I did when I was a kid. I hated public speaking. I would turn beet red, but after just so much time, you don't really operate with that, and it's been hard for me to put a finger on it. So part of the reason why I'm asking a question to you, for
Yeah.
listeners who do have that fear, What's your recommendation if they want to get behind that cameraman or they want to get up on stage? How can they share that first word, that first phrase, that first message?
Yeah. So in some of my keynotes, I have a keynote that's called Embrace Fear and Fail Forward. That four-letter F word, fear, is something that prevents so many dreams. I mean, so many
Yeah.
people go to their grave and never share that idea. They never share their story because simply they're scared. And what are they scared of? They're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of the reaction that people might get. They're afraid of the embarrassment that they might receive, whatever it might be. And one of my good friends, Kent Chevalier, he's actually the chaplain for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh wow. Okay. I'm a big Steeler guy. So
I'm a big Steeler guy, and I haven't shared this publicly, but I'm actually going to be chaplain the Pittsburgh Steelers when they come play the Detroit Lions in December, and I'm very excited about it because the
that's awesome.
Steelers have always been my favorite team. I almost played for them in 2007, so it's gonna be a full circle moment for me. But Kent shares, he says, you just have to do it scared, and everybody's heard this, right? You just have to do it scared. And, what does do it scared mean? When it comes to public speaking, if you are in that 77% of all adults are afraid to public speak. Do you know
Oh,
that?
I didn't know that. No.
77% of adults. Only 55% of adults are afraid of the process of death. So more people are afraid to public speak than there are people to die. Right.
That's
So I
crazy.
understand. In what is the actual fear of public speaking? The fear of public speaking is not being accepted, to be embarrassed, to stumble over your words, or for people to just not like what you have to say. Right. One of the ways that I got over public speaking is I would just set up my phone and I would just start to talk on video at my phone. Right. There's a guy named on Instagram or TikTok. His name's Ask Vin. I think his name is Vinh Giang. Okay,
Mm.
he's Vietnamese. He used to be a magician, and now he's a public speaking coach. And this guy
Hmm.
is incredible. Okay, if you guys have never heard of Ask Vin, please go look him up. I think it's
Hmm.
Vihn and Vinh Giang, Ghang, I believe.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I've been following Vin for years, and he shares this. Before you step on a stage, I want you to record yourself for 5 minutes just sharing a story. Okay, record yourself for 5 minutes sharing a story. And then I want you to do three things. I want you to listen to yourself without the video on, where you're just hearing your voice. I want you to watch the video without the audio on, just so you can watch your body language, your face expressions, the use of hands, whatever it might be. And then I want you to watch yourself and listen to yourself at the same time. You're going to learn a few things about yourself. You're going to learn you don't like the facial expressions that you share. You're going to learn you don't like the way you use your hands. You're going to learn that you don't like the eye contact that you do or don't have. You're going to learn you don't like the way you use your voice in the inflection of your voice, right?
Mm.
And the more that you do this, the more comfortable you're going to get with your own self, and the easier it will be to get on stage to start to share. That's number one. Number two is John Maxwell. So a lot of people come to me and they're like, didn't John Maxwell create Fail Forward? Maybe, maybe not. John Maxwell wrote a book back in 2000 called Failing Forward. And his books are incredible. He's written over 87 books. John Maxwell is absolutely incredible. And he was on a podcast not long ago, and he shared, someone asked, how can you help people that communicate ideas be a better, a more effective communicator? Okay. And he said something that was mind blowing to me. He says, the best communicators get out of their own self. They don't care what they look like, they don't care what they sound like. All of the energy and the information that they're trying to share is outward, they're not inward. He says,
Mm.
because if you're trying to communicate an idea outwardly, but you're focused on inward and what I look like, what I sound like, what people think about me, right? Then you're not going to communicate that idea effectively. You're not going to
Hmm.
communicate that story effectively. You're not going to communicate the training effectively. Whatever it is, you're not going to communicate it effectively if you're focused inward. If everything is focused outward, that
Yes.
idea will come across exactly how it should land. All right.
Yes.
So if you want to get on stage, if you want to share an idea, get out of your way, get out of your own way, get out of your own head, and just communicate the idea.
Yes, yes, yes. Great advice. I firmly believe we need more people out there sharing their messages. I come across people all the time who have these compelling stories and an authentic heart, right? That
Yeah.
you just know that they would be able to impact some lives and
Yes.
you're like, well, how do I begin? Where do I start? Who's gonna listen to me? What makes so it's just hearing it from you, I think is empowering for people, even if like you said, even if it's only to bring an idea to a team meeting. I often think how many times there's a quiet voice that sits idly in the back of a business meeting or a boardroom, and they never speak up because they're
Yes.
fearful of you know like what someone's going to say, but that might be the innovative thing that's needed to change that organizational culture or their processes. So thanks for sharing that, Jake. That's awesome stuff, man.
Yeah.
Great, great. Well, I'd love to. I want to be mindful of our time, and I'd love to really have just two more things on my heart. I'd love to just dive into leadership a little bit because you spent some time as a leader,
Yeah.
as an athlete, as a captain, and working with teams, having to learn about different industry pain points and
Yeah.
organizational pain points within specific industries. Very simply, what do you perceive to be the non-negotiables or essentials of effective leadership?
Effective leadership, they have to be someone that is a good follower. I firmly believe the best leaders are servant leaders. They understand that they're in the position in order to help those that are in their stead. They're not in the position in order to lord over, hover over, micromanage, right? If you think about the best leader you've ever worked for, right? What did they do? They were there for you. They listened to you. They were empathetic towards what you needed, right? They allowed you to have those days off and that time off when you had something going on with your family. They might have written a handwritten note to you when you did something very, very well, right? They had that soft inside. I believe that every leader has to have and lead with empathy. And that's not sympathy, right? Don't get it confused with sympathy, right? They have empathy. They feel, they understand, they know, and they put themselves in your shoes to understand how to best help you individually. The best leaders in my mind are servant leaders that lead with empathy.
Mhm.
And I'm currently writing a book. It's called Avocado Leadership. I think we might have talked about this.
No, no, I like it though. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's called Avocado Leadership. And the avocado leadership, there's a framework for avocado leadership. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that the best leaders are and have the same makeup of what a good ripe avocado have, right? You've tried to cut into an avocado well before it was ripe, and it's hard. The skin's hard, the flesh is hard, and even if you get it open, it's not going to be good, right? And but if that avocado is good and ripe, the skin is malleable, it's adaptable. You can put it in any environment and it'll still thrive. The flesh, the inside is soft, it's nourishing, it's ready. And that seed, that core, right, is able to breed more and grow more avocado trees, right? The same is true with a good leader. They've been through the test of time. They understand that their skin has to be tough but malleable. It's got to be adaptable, right? They understand that their flesh, their inside, they've got to be soft. They've got to be empathetic. But then they have to have that core, their core values that are unwavering, right? Someone that you know that this leader is going to be the same every single day through and through, and they're leaning on their core values, but they also build and grow more leaders from that core, right? Their job is not to grow more followers, it's to grow more leaders. And I firmly believe that the best leaders are avocado leaders. They have the makeup of what a good ripe avocado is.
Hmm. I look forward to that book. Avocado leadership. Good. And another great analogy. I think those connect with people while we're on the book piece. And there's one comment I do want to make, so I won't forget to tie back. But I do want to mention your book to folks. How do we find that, Jake? Where do we,
Yeah.
is it on Amazon, Barnes and
Yep.
Noble, all the places?
Yep.
Yeah.
So my fail forward mentality book, I wrote this in December of 2024. You can find this book on Amazon. Just look up Jacob Brown, Fail Forward Mentality. Um, it's also on my website. So on my website, if you go to books page and you purchase it through my website, I will actually send a signed copy of the book to you
Awesome.
from me personally. I love signing books. I'm going to be going to an event, like I said, this weekend, and they've ordered 200 books that I'm going to be sitting and signing and meeting people. And it's one of my favorite things to do is to meet people and understand why this book and how this book might help them. So I'm looking forward to helping you guys. And you can find my book on failforwardbrown.com. And
Okay.
I'm looking forward to meeting you all.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thank you for that. To go back to your point about empathy, I love that word, and I love that you brought up the difference between sympathy and empathy. I've often said that myself because I think people, think that like you're feeling sorry for someone, right?
Right.
If I'm deploying empathy, well, woe is me, woe
Yeah.
is you, but it's really trying to get outside of yourself and outside of your ego to experience life how that person may be
Yes.
able to experience. What particularly about empathy allows for leaders to excel? Like, and then, and I know we're diving super deep. Some of this stuff is
Yeah.
intangible, but I want to pick your brain on this. So, so that's question one, as I'd love to hear, and then, two, for leaders who might have this view that, well, that's still, soft, like we're about results, right? We're about performance. How do we quantify that for those? You don't need to convince me, Jake, but for
Yeah.
that leader who's listening, like, no, we're about results here. How do you get them to be more empathetic?
Yeah. I would say outside of the bottom line, the fruit of a good leader is building and growing other leaders, but also retaining their talent. Most people leave jobs because of leaders. They don't leave jobs because the job's hard. They don't leave jobs for money. They leave jobs because their manager is managing them and not in a way that they feel led.
Mm,
So a good leader retains their talent or helps build and grow their talent so that they become leaders as well. So quantifying empathy is having good leaders growing other leaders or retaining their talent. Now, how do you do that, right? Simon Sinek gives an analogy. He gives a story that, the leader that doesn't lead with empathy, he has an employee that's doing bad. He brings him in his office and he says, "Hey, you've been doing terrible the last couple of months. I'm going to put you on a 90-day probation, right? If things don't change, you're going to be fired," right? That employee leaves. Do you think that employee is is ready to work harder? Probably not. They're probably are starting to put in their 2 weeks. They're probably looking for other jobs until they can get out of there, right? They already know the thumb is the foot is on the back of their neck. They don't want to. Leader number two, they bring the same employee in. They say, "Hey, you've not been doing well the last, couple months. What's going on? Is
yeah.
everything all right at home? Are you okay? Is your health good?" Right? Now that employee understands, number one, this leader cares more about them than just the number, than just the bottom line. They don't view them as just an asset to the company, but as a human being. That employee is going to work harder for that leader now because they know that the leader actually cares about them individually and as a human being, right?
Hmm.
So when
Hmm.
times get tough, when things get hard, that employee, that team member is going to be more susceptible to stick it out and stick around because they don't want to disappoint the leader that cared for them during their tough time.
Hmm.
That's what leading with empathy looks like.
Great way to quantify it. Yes, yes, yes. Hopefully, we reach some skeptical folks out there.
I hope
Uh,
so.
Last question for you, Jake, because I think I promised you we'd be at 1 hour. So I want to end, and this whole conversation has been inspirational in nature, but I want to end particularly with an inspiring note and some hope and optimism for that listener. The one I kind of referenced at the beginning who might be entering this call in a tough place in their life, and now they're leaving feeling better. They're like you fired them up and they've got some tangible things to implement in their life, but they're still maybe in the back of their mind like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna make the mortgage payment this month.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm gonna tell my wife or my husband that this is it. I don't know how I'm gonna bring the difficult news to the team, and they're feeling at their wits' end, and they're having a difficult time navigating this moment. What's your message to this person who might be feeling hopeless in life?
Yeah. One of the things that my mom always said, and this rings true every single time, is when you need help the most. When you're in that moment, in that place where you feel like the world is crashing down on you, you feel like you've got the weight on your shoulders, you feel like nothing's going right in your life. This is the exact moment when you have to start reaching out to help other people. And I know that it doesn't make sense, right? I know that it's hard to hear that you need help. Your mortgage payments are you're behind maybe a couple months. You don't really have money for the bills. This is the exact moment where it's time for you to reach out to help someone else. And I'm going to share a quick story. So there was a story of a little girl that was on the beach and she's picking up these starfish and she's throwing them back in the water. And there's a crowd of people that are watching and they're laughing at her because they don't understand why she's doing this. There's thousands of starfish on the beach because there was a storm that blew them onto the beach. And these starfish are dying in the sun, drying out. And this little girl's picking them up one by one and throwing them in. And this old man comes by and she's like, little girl, you're not going to make a difference. Why are you throwing these starfish back? And she almost looked defeated. She reached down and grabbed another starfish and threw it back in the water. And she says, I just made a difference for that one. And the old man felt silly and he started reaching down and helping her throw the starfish back in. And soon the crowd that was laughing started reaching down and throwing starfish back in. And after a while, every starfish that was on that beach had been put back in the water and saved. And the moral of this story is listen, there are going to be times where you might feel defeated. There will be times where you feel like you're not making a difference. There are going to be times where you feel like you're alone. But when you start reaching down and helping other people, this is where your world and the world around you begins to shift and change. And we need more people in this world to reach down and grab and help starfish that are dying on the beach. Because if you do that, I guarantee someone's going to reach down and they're going to help you.
Hmm. Hmm. You were awesome, man. What a powerful way to close, Jacob. I'm deeply, deeply grateful for your insights today and so proud to know you and be connected to you now and looking forward to future collaboration with us. But I'm just so grateful to your insights today. Definitely made a difference on me, and I'm sure others and will be many others. So I'll follow up with you offline, but again, thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, my friend. You're making a difference and you're helping people know how to not just talk about failing forward, but actually take their failures and move forward. So thank you again.
Thank you so much, Adam. It was a great conversation. And remember, guys, just fail forward.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll send out a note to everyone inside of Mindful Journey with your social media. I know you and I are connected now on LinkedIn, and for those who've made it to this point of the conversation, please know that Jacob does put out heartfelt content. It's free to absorb on there. He's not charging you something. There's a lot of speakers out in the marketplace who will charge you, $100 for this, $100 for this. He has an
Yeah.
authentic heart. There are things, and you should definitely buy products from him, but there's a lot of good content on his LinkedIn. So please follow him there. And Jacob, again, thank you. I'll follow up with you offline.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Take care. We'll see you. Take care,
All right.
everyone.